The mainstream media, definitely. These are the flying monkeys of the narcissistic consciousness. This colonial narcissistic consciousness that has had a grip on the whole of consciousness for however many hundreds of years now. So you have the flying monkeys, which are the thought processes. They are the mechanisms that are used to reinforce the narcissistic belief systems and the narcissistic control measures and the narcissistic, more specifically, the narcissistic control supply. So in a narcissistic parenting relationship, the children are sources of narcissistic supply. In society, the source of narcissistic supply, the people are the supply. The institutions that the people feed into are the supply, the narcissistic supply for the narcissistic dictator, the narcissistic identity. So this is all going into the blueprints of the mind control that I've been referencing in the last few years now. Our parents are just raising their children the same way that their parents raised them, and their parents raised the majority of their children in a fucked up manner. So this is why things are the way they are on a micro scale and on a macro scale. And we can't place a lot of these things to where they need to go because there's a sense of pride in the mother being a mother, the father being a father, you know, America being America. You know, there's this pride that's there, and there's no real sense of reasons why. There's just to celebrate this. This goes in, this is basically the nuts and bolts of why the sandcastle empire needs to be consistently reinforced into your reality on a not only a daily basis, but a momentary basis. So on and every day, every moment of the day, there's something that reinforces you being attached to this narcissistic reality. You can look at the mainstream media, the education system, the drive to be, or the push to be successful. The food makes you codependent. So in the narcissistic family relationship, the food relationship that people have within the narcissistic family is a sense of narcissistic supply because the children or the people weigh themselves down. That creates a codependent relationship with the parental figures or the narcissistic parents. Their source of energy to keep the children close is food that fills their body up but doesn't fill their inner bodies up. There's no nutrients, even on the physical, psychological, or spiritual. There's no natural, organic kind of connection there. But just like you can go to a McDonald's and live off McDonald's your entire life, the education system acts as a sense of narcissistic fuel or narcissistic supply for the narcissistic power, the controllers, by having something to look forward to. So like I've been saying in previous videos, this system is about stealing your time. And a way to see what that means on a deeper level is that your consciousness, your time is precious. But that's just an explanation of something that's obvious. In a psychological perspective, the time that's within, the time that is stolen in that relationship is not just stolen just because they're bad people or whatever it is. It's a sense of fuel. It's a supply. So the way things are in society are that way on purpose because that chaos, that dysfunction in society acts as a supply for the controllers. It not only acts as a supply, but it also acts as a measure of higher than. So you can see, like, just as the parents might not even be shit, but they are some kind of shit because they are higher than the child. So they are a parent. This is why I've been breaking down in these previous videos. This pride shit in being a mother and father ain't shit because there's no real definitions there. The same way there's no real definitions of love. There's no substance there. It's just a thing. So how the fuck are you proud of just having sex and popping a baby out? Like, there's nothing to be proud there. But look at the mainstream media. Look at the glorification of parenthood. There's no glorification of being a great parent, to be a knowledgeable parent. There's nothing there. So that means there's a reason behind why parenting is promoted in society. Another thing is that the narcissistic control government needs to, I've referenced this in previous videos, the king and the queen. So the household function acts as a microcosm of the macrocosm that is the king and the queen over the masses. The family dynamics become a carbon copy of the relationship that government has with the masses overall. This function goes throughout society. It's pumped throughout society through the mainstream media. So that constant inundation of, be like this person, dress like this, wear this, have this job, get this education, go here, do this, have this family, raise your children like this, celebrate this holiday. Educate yourself like this, think about the universe like this. The list goes on and on and on. The point is, it's easier to have people blind to their mind controls if they look exactly like the mind controller, if they act and feel and pride themselves in what the mind controllers pride themselves in and with. So this is why the so-called white person, because like I've said, white and blackness don't exist. This is a control measure. So in the narcissistic governmental family, the white people are the golden children, whereas the black people are the black sheep or the scapegoats. This includes all non-white people, by the way, but specifically the main child of this narcissistic governmental family, the main black sheep, the main scapegoat, are the darkest of the dark. So all the scapegoats of the world are the non-white people. They are the problems. We are the problems that the parental figures of the colonial establishment need to take care of. So this is why they need to label the whole world as third world and you as first world, or them as first world, and the rest of the world is a third world country. This is to express their dominance and their, take it a step even further into the scientific interpretation of, how they break this stuff down. There's a pride in the way this system came to be. So all of the destroying, the enslavement, the bombing, the genocide that led up to the establishment of today, it can never be acknowledged, because it's the same way that a parent can never acknowledge the golden child, scapegoat, lost one, flying monkey situation. They will lose everything. They will lose their supply grid. They will lose their control. They will lose their power. Every part of their narcissistic governmental family will come crashing down if the Native American story is spoken on, if the indigenous peoples of the world is spoken on. Any deep kind of truth, the same way any deep kind of truth or observation that goes on in the family can bring about a breakdown of the narcissistic control grid, the same way that happens on a micro scale in the family, the same thing happens on a macro scale in society with the establishment and the peoples as a whole. I don't really have to go into much detail about this. Once you start realizing, once you do the research on the scapegoat, the golden child, and the lost one, you'll start to see more so exactly what I've been speaking about for the last, 5, 6, 7 years now. See this from a psychological perspective. Like, people need accreditation. They need all that shit. Like, some people do. Not everybody needs that accreditation sort of, oh, that's okay. Like, he must know what he's talking about. Some people need that. People who still have an internal receptor for feeling and everything, they don't really need that. They don't need, like, if somebody tells me something and I can see, like, I know and I can understand and understand where they're coming from, you already know that. But there's something in the narcissistic family relationship on a massive scale that tells people that you can only trust people when they have this degree, this diploma, this such and such and such and such. That relationship that people have with intelligence is a supply chain, a narcissistic supply energy grid that is everlasting, pretty much. It'll just keep going on. So the public education system is a source of narcissistic supply. The dominance, the beating down of non-white people in society around the world is a way of maintaining as little amount of narcissistic injury, because once non-white people speak up about their situation, that very act creates narcissistic injury to the controllers. So this is why the story needs to be the story of the narcissistic parent, or the story of the narcissistic empire needs to be reinforced on a daily basis, on a annual basis. They need to constantly tell you, this is your story. This is what you need to be proud of. This is evolution. This is how it is. There's nothing else. If you say something else, you'll be excluded. You'll be discarded. You'll be the scapegoat of the scapegoats. So this is what conspiracy theorists are. So the main reason the scapegoat is because the scapegoat creates a sense of vulnerability in the entire establishment, because they become the scapegoat because they don't take the shit from the controllers. So in order to maintain control, there needs to be a buildup of something to be proud of. Look at this child, this golden child. Like these are the white people of society. Look at these fucking golden children. They are so fucking successful. They've, built Tesla and Apple and Microsoft and, all this shit that they put out every day. I heard somebody on the plane talking about they named their child Tesla or something. So yeah, the golden children need to be built up. So as long as there's a golden child, that information, that relationship is used to discredit all of the information that the scapegoat brought to the surface. So because there are successful white people, that validates that there are unsuccessful black people. That because white people have done it on their own, right? Like the parents are putting it out there. They put that atmosphere of, pull your fucking bootstraps and get out there and do it like us. Motherfucker, you do shit out there. Like you've been the fucking, so everybody can see this. Any kind of growth really comes to a halt because the main focus is of survival, this whole and in the meantime, after survival, you have to maintain some kind of family relationship, so society has put out there movies, entertainment. Today's version of that is social media. Social media maintains the white noise while the family dynamic continues to get worse. So this is why I said it's all about how your time is stolen. Your time is stolen. And in that time being stolen, the narcissistic power grid is being filled up. So the internet is a narcissistic supply chain for the narcissistic government control grid. The narcissistic government needs to control the awakening of the golden child, the scapegoat, and the lost child. So the new age community is being developed to control that awakening, to further manipulate the narcissistic supply chain through another source. As of now, some of the narcissistic supply chain energy is coming from the education system, the government, the food industry, the prescription drug, the medical industry, but also the mainstream religious programs. So how religions soak up the narcissistic supply from the masses of people who funnel their energy into those systems. The same way that that breaks down all of the energy is the same way that the New Age community is breaking down that energy and is going to break down that energy. So the New Age is just going to be this universal version of the way Christianity has dominated and is dominating these spiritual interpretations of reality around the world. The reasons why you have a blonde-haired, blue-eyed Jesus in your home is to reinforce the narcissistic parental figure. Not only the narcissistic parental figure, but the narcissistic parental characters. Because the blonde-haired, blue-eyed Jesus is not only a figurehead for the narcissistic parent, the overlord, the controller, but also represents the narcissistic child, Jesus. Jesus is the narcissistic golden child that can do no wrong. You can never say anything about that golden child, because that golden child is a manifestation of the godly nature of this realm itself through the eyes of who? The narcissistic parental control group, or the establishment that uses that control measure. The thing with the Jesus program is that the Jesus not only represents the father figure, but Jesus also represents the golden child. So the child that can do no wrong, the parent that can do no wrong, twice separates a non-white person from any kind of empowerment, from any kind of self-love. You're born into self-hatred when the God looks nothing like you. The God of this realm looks nothing like you. You can't see yourself in the highest form of reality. The same kind of effect that happens when you cannot see yourself. The reasons why there are a majority of so-called white people teaching non-white students in public education system. It's a sense of dominance, of control, intellectual authority. What's happening is that the students are thinking subconsciously they need to be there because they're smarter. Science has, you hear white supremacists say this all the time. Chinese people or Asian people are smarter than white people, and white people are smarter than black people. It's a joke in society. The smart Asian kid and the goofy sort of athletic black and white kids, but the white kid is successful in society and all this other stuff, and the black people are just athletes, and get the fuck out of here. Go play some basketball or music or some shit, and go be the scapegoat. Go do some crime on the streets or some shit. It's a joke in society, and those jokes, that atmosphere is another source of narcissistic supply. So the children of the golden children of the narcissistic parental units feel a sense of higher than accomplishment. They feel a sense of, they fill their roles when the golden child, the white golden child in society can fill their role more easily when the scapegoats of society are more scapegoaty. So in the mainstream consciousness, this is why you have to have the robbers and the thieves. This is why Trump was talking about, Mexicans are rapists and, they're going to rob you and do all this other shit. And then you have black people on television robbing people and doing all this, shooting each other, shooting other people. And this is another reason why the golden child cannot have the white people doing all these mass shootings. The mainstream media can't say, that there's a trend of white men who are doing this. So the golden child having a short circuit and going and shooting up people is largely, and it being connected to white supremacy, is connected to this narcissistic identity that has manifested through the soul, like as God. Like they are the gods that can mass destroy other souls with a weapon because they have been empowered by the narcissistic control grid that is the establishment itself. So a mass shooter, a white boy mass shooter that goes out there and shoots all these people, he can do that because in his eyes, he's God. Not only that, but he's reinforced by society as being God when the society itself doesn't reference the individual. So this is what's happening. The individual is, so the individual that I'm talking about is the golden child tagline itself. So that not referencing is what gives these individuals this sense of authority, this sense of I'm better than you. So on a massive scale, mass shootings is what this comes to be. How mass shootings is how that godly mind control manifests into reality. Whereas on a smaller scale, it's just kind of like this internal white supremacy. They think they're better than you, but they won't say anything. Like on the lowest scale, they'll act like they're your friends, but they still think like, we're better than you people. We're better than you. So they have that whole thing in there. On an extreme scale, somebody's so sick in the head, he's gonna say, I'm so better than them, I'm gonna get an automatic weapon and go fucking kill all these people. So that's part of the reason, what's happening. But the real breakdown is coming from the relationship, the internal relationship that isn't really allowed to go into the internal spaces, really. People don't have internal relationships. People have external internal relationships. You can't have an internal relationship in a narcissistic relationship or in a narcissistic family dynamic. You can only have the labels that the authority figures have placed upon you. So this is why there's no real substance to people or individuals anymore. It's all about who you are. You're a Democrat, you're a Republican, you're a super conservative, you're a progressive, aggressive progressive. It's all about jumping onto some kind of group, some kind of big group that's accepted by the parents. This is what's going on right now. So this is why politics is such a big thing. It's because what's happening is that you have all of these children that are being influenced by the rebellious children now, who are the conspiracy theorists in the eyes. So now the scapegoats are right now creating an alliance consciously with each other and unveiling this narcissistic control grid on a macro scale. Since that is being revealed, the narcissistic parents need to create more control grids. So they created the aggressive progressives. They created the progressives. They created TYT and all these alternative news sources. This is to create more spaces for people to fill, more spaces to fill themselves up at the same time, externally and internally. Because once you look into and break down the golden child, the lost child, and the scapegoat, you'll see that there's no real identity with these individuals. The identity comes from what the parents or the control measures have done to them. But once you escape that, the game is over. When you get into the spiritual warfare, you're pretty much on your own. You are on your own unless you choose not to be. So this is the thing with the New Age community. A lot of people don't want to be on their own. So this is why it's beneficial for them to be in a New Age community, and why it's beneficial for the system to create a New Age community, because they know people are escaping this broken family dynamic. They're going to need some place to go. The New Age community is this utopian welcoming grid. Oh, come in. It's so nice over here. It's so beautiful. Do you see what I'm saying? So that is why this is beneficial to the system. This is why you have Marianne Williamson, talking about love is the answer, and she's going to answer. You have another golden child out there fixing the whole fucking world. When you're dealing with the subconscious, you're not dealing with conscious people. You're dealing with people who are largely unconsciously doing things or subconsciously doing things because they don't know what to do. They don't have anything else to do. So when you're bringing conscious information to individuals who are dealing with unconscious behaviors, you're not really going to get far with them. That's the work that needs to be done internally by the individual. And if they're in, especially a narcissistic relationship with themselves and other people, if you bring any kind of energy into that situation, you will be labeled as a scapegoat, and you will be fought. So once that starts to happen, that's when you need to find out, what space you need to be in. Largely, people pull back and to allow the cards to lie where they may, but some people feel the need to get engaged a little more. I've been engaging for a while now, and now having understood this breakdown from a higher perspective, I can see how deep this goes and how this needs to be done on a mass scale, and largely even more so individually. There's so much more to this story involving the family dynamics of this relationship that the micro has to the macro. But this is a good breakdown of how people can see where I'm talking about in reference to white supremacy and the dynamics of society as a whole right now. Once people start to realize that Big Brother, the system itself, is the narcissistic parental unit, it doesn't take much to start to disassemble this stuff once you start doing the work from the inside out. All this politics and all this stuff, all the Marianne Williamson, that's external stuff. They're this is why she says love wins and I'm a spiritual candidate and all this other stuff. That's an external entity trying to appear to deal with internal things. What needs to happen internally. The system knows this, so the system is trying to co-opt the internal shift of consciousness by acting as if you can do an internal shift of consciousness outside of yourself. Not only outside of yourself, but through the codependent narcissistic program that has been going on for centuries now.